first welcome Mr. Vittal Kamath, the owner of this property. Give him a big hand. And may I request, Kamath sir, you can take any chair for the moment because our guests are just coming. Yes, sir, this is all yours. So before we begin, I just must thank all the people who have made this function happen here, And we have been trying to come to Orchid for the last 2 years. So somehow it did not happen. But this year it happened. And thanks to Kamasab and his team that we are here. Because this was very synergic with the ENERTIA Awards. Because ENERTIA Awards are for sustainable energy, sustainable resources. And it's very, very, I would say, synergic to have this award function here. So we will wait for 5 minutes. Our guests are just coming down from the Club Privé. They're just having their coffee. And we will start it. We wanted to look at goals which are long-term. We wanted to see the industry going towards a long-term objective of fulfilling the demands of the community. Although a common man, for him, electricity is electricity, because he does not understand, he or she does not understand how electricity is produced, whether it is the technology part, whether it's the resource part, or whether how it reaches him or her. But we all know that the biggest impact that a common man goes through is the electricity commodity itself. But the interesting part of this whole story is electricity is not an end product. This is what I wish to share with all the audience here. Electricity is a carrier. It's not the end product. The end use of electricity is probably to light up this hotel, probably to run our trains in the transport system, to run industry, to literally run all kind of development models like even the call center and the new economy. So finally, the end process or the use of electricity, the end use of electricity defines how important that electricity is and not electricity itself. But the real question is, this carrier is so critical. So once we understand this definition, that electricity, although we have commodified this, is not the end product. The end product is the commercial activity or whatever we do to add to the GDP. So with that in picture, we needed a very long-term sustainable model where without this, I do not think anything is humanly possible. It all started, we as human beings probably never wanted to move, and we wanted to use expend lesser energy within, and actually you wanted to use resources so that which make us move. It started with the invention of the wheel. Beyond that, if you look at modern times, those times after World War II, we'll say, or before it, we say, okay, invention of steam engine and beyond. And we can go on and on all this. But today we have come to a stage where globally, the way we are using electricity is going to become a question. How we are using it will become a question. And what is the resource that we are going to deploy to bring electricity in is going to be a major question. And these awards are very critical because we have attempted our best in 4 years to bring a right mix, be credible, be fair, and I would say it's judged by absolute professionals. And I would also openly say, zero politics. Yeah, I'm very frank and blunt. Minus politics. I don't want to say the second thing which I wanted to say is well understood. And I'm happy that this award finally goes good. Once I read a nice article, and there, it was written, and people would comprehend, they said Mahatma Gandhi is a politician, but the last line was, and it was Nelson Mandela's article. He said, but he smells good. The word, he smells good, that tells you about what kind of politicians we need now in this country. So this is not a discourse on politics or anything, but we, as a process, when we involve as a media or anything, we wish to be as neutral as possible, but at the same time, media has to make decisions. Media cannot stand and be a bystander of the whole process. Media has to be at least a catalyst and a mover of certain new processes that happen in the economy. And with this, I feel I want to tell you that these awards are set to grow. These awards are here to build further. We would go to the whole of Asia by the next year. We have an Indian dimension to this award, and I must thank our very good friend from Bhutan, and please give him Big clap. I was not knowing that our jury panel member Khajanchi Saab would be here. He's come all the way up from Bhutan. And let me tell you, Bhutan's Tala project won the Best Hydroelectric Project Award in the year 2008. And that was the absolute beginning of our foray. Because why we recognize? Because Tala has a great, I would say, impact on India. Tala is absolutely, if you see, it is not only Bhutan's project, it would be India's project also. India must see success of ventures like Tala all around. So our dependence more and more on this other part of our system, that means South Asia and rest of the countries, is becoming critical. So with this, I just gave you a gist, and I think our guests are here. May I now request our guest, Mr. Nimish Patel, to come over. May I request Dr. D.V. Kapoor, if he is here. Okay. May I also request Sri Vittal Kamath. Please give him a big hand once again, because he has taken real time off for this. We have Dr. D.V. Kapoor. Please give him a big hand and a standing ovation, please. May I request Sri Anil Razdan, the chairman of the jury panel of ENERTIA Awards. Please give him a big hand. We don't have Suresh Prabhu still. He will be there. Okay. So may I request Mr. V.P. Raja. Mr. V.P. Raja is here. So fine, I think. Yeah, he's confirmed with me also. He was to meet. We can start, right? I think it will be very right to start the function, and before we start any function, we have the ceremonial lighting of the lamps. May I request our guests on the podium, on the dais, to please come over, starting with Dr. D.V. Kapoor, Mr. Anil Razdan, Nimish Bhai, may I also request Nilesh Mandlewala to come over from Southern Gujarat Chamber of Commerce. How many wigs are there? May I request T.C. Arora also to come over, please? Mr. T.C. Arora. Thanks to everybody. With this, we declare the 4th ENERTIA Awards open. And as I told you about these awards, as I briefed you, this year there has been some changes in the sense that we have a new chairman, in Sri Anil Razdan, jury has been, I would say, so kind enough that they gave the time and the effort to judge these awards. And not only that, I must really thank Patel Engineering Limited. You must give a big hand to this company, because this is the company that has handled these awards absolutely. And we have reached a time when we are able to reward the industry for the work. We are able to reward the professionals and bring it to this level. We have amongst us today two eminent personalities already, and we think Suresh Prabhu will also join in, and Sri Kamath is also here. But we must talk about Dr. D.V. Kapoor. You know, Dr. D.V. Kapoor is the founder chairman of NTPC. He has been Secretary Energy, Secretary Heavy Industry, and Secretary Chemicals and Petrochemicals. And he has served in various capacities, and now he is Director on the board of RIL. And Mr. Anil Razdan also needs no introduction. You know, we see all this ultra mega power happening for you, you know, because of Sri Razdan. And definitely he was one who was positive on all the policies and even promoted a lot of these renewable energy goals. And we must really thank him for the time that he has given us as the chairman of the jury. And I must tell you that as one of the members of the panel, I have been very happy working with him and getting, I would say, deep insights into the industry and the way it works. To start the function and to start the process before we declare the awards, we have time for talk from these gentlemen, and we would like to start the awards as soon as possible, but definitely people would like to hear these gentlemen. And so may I first request Dr. D.V. Kapoor to address, because I'm just changing a little bit. We'll have Suresh Prabhu Sahab speaking, but I thought if we can have 15 to 20 minutes. May I request Kapoor Sahab, we are sorry we would have given you more time, but that kind of time constraint we have, we would request Kapoor Sahab to give us a 20-minute on where we must go now.
Mr. Kamath, Professor Iyer, distinguished award winners and friends. And Professor Iyer met me the other day and suggested that could I sketch a canvas on power sector in 20 minutes. Frankly speaking, I was totally aghast. He got encouragement because he saw one of my papers in the recent past, but for which even in a abridged form I had to be on the podium for 75 minutes. Anyway, let me say a few words. First of all, let me express my grateful thanks to the ENERTIA Awards, the eminent jury headed by a luminary of energy and power sector and my friend Anil Razdan, for the recognition, that's a word one has to use, for whatever little contribution I might have made to the power sector during 60 years, almost 60 years, from 1951 onward till now in the power sector. As I said, for this opportunity of 20 minutes, it's a difficult task standing before this august gathering to reflect on some of the aspects of power sector. Presence of my good friend Suresh Prabhu further encourages me. His very presence on this is auspicious for me on this occasion. I recall not only his vision but his understanding and his open-mindedness. When one day in power sector, power ministry, when he was the minister, and the draft of Electricity Act 2003 was in the final stages. He had called me to his office and consulted me about it. I congratulated him when I saw the first page because the generation was recommended for delicensing. But I remarked after the next 4 pages that it's a disaster because there were 41 clearances required to be taken before the so-called delicensed. But I must say, that is where one admires the man. He called some of his senior officers and we all sat together quietly in my own office for 3 days, and line by line we went through the whole draft. A number of places that is the type of person I have always looked forward not only in power ministry but entire set of government, but that doesn't happen. Power is not only the lifeline of industry, organized industry. In present day, it has also become essential requirement for the present day agriculture. There are over 16 million electrically operated tube wells in this country. And it is the successful normal operation of those 16 million pumps which creates adequate food which you and me require all the year round. And more than all these sectors, you would agree that if I say that day-to-day quality of life of a common man is getting linked to the access to electricity. Origin of electricity in utility industry is not very old. It started in, I think, 1982 with the establishment of first power station, Edison Pearl Street Station near New York, for supply of power to 800 consumers at a tariff which if I tell you, you will be horrified, at the rate of $5 per unit. Today it is less than 5 cents. But that is why, in any case, that was the origin. And that after that things moved very fast. So much so that even in India, within 30 years, the first utility company started in Calcutta with a steam power station of 1 megawatt. Unfortunately, after that, in pre-independence period, till 1947, things did move but very slowly, and the utility industry developed only in towns, and in 1947 the aggregate capacity was only 1363 megawatt or something of that order. After independence, the things which gave a boost was the amendment of Indian electricity reform with the enactment of Electricity Supply Act 1948 and planning era in terms of 5-year plan starting from 1951. With the first step, the formation SEBs started, the whole industry was nationalized except in Calcutta and Bombay. And with the planning era, the responsibility was transferred to a great extent to the states. Well, if one goes to the figures, from 1367 in 1947 to almost 1,64,000 megawatt as of today, things have moved. Power sector has taken major strides. And not only in terms of quantum, some of the things technologically, some of the very large and complex hydropower stations were done in the country entirely by Indian engineers and Indian expertise. In spite of a total insulation to the nuclear side in India, from the rest of the world, Indian scientists and engineers did demonstrate the capability to set up a base of nuclear power industry based on which we can grow now onward very fast. In terms of capacity, it may be only 4,000 some odd megawatt, but it has a sound base, and it always takes much more time to create the base, which is now there. Knowledgeable base, technologically competent base. In addition to the sector, the feeding sector, the heavy electrical equipment industrial base was created within this period. Which needs certainly a lot of expansion, but a sound base is already there. In terms of credit to the power sector during these 63 years, I would pick up their performance where they have demonstrated. Many of our power stations today are operating at a plant load factor of well above 80%, which by any international standard is a very high level. There may be some of them are outdated, some may be because of bad management also, may be very poor. But all the same, considering that in the 60s and 70s we used to have a all India plant load factor of 40 to 50%, today it is 70% plus. Against these complementary areas, one can certainly identify areas of grim failures. Poor quality of power and shortages. People in Bombay and Delhi may not be able to realize, but you have got to go to the interiors. How agriculture suffers. How small companies suffer who have installed thousands and thousands of diesel power stations to support their system. How very small towns and villages go without power for 8 hours and 10 hours a day. That has been the effect of the shortage. There is also a sad story which I rate very high on the negative side. That 63 years after independence of the country, in an industry which is hardly 120 years old, almost 50% of our households in rural areas and 10% of households in the urban area are without electricity. That has been a major failure. One can go in detail in each one of these areas. What were the factors, what happened, who were responsible, what could have been done. I won't have time to do that. But I propose to touch three areas which in my view are a matter of great concern, particularly in the coming years. And that is far more important, learning from the past. The first and foremost is fuel supply and mix, as well as selection of mode of generation. And one has to keep in view what are the future requirements. If I mention you the figure, by say 1931, which is not very far, two decades away, and we're talking on the basis of past 60 years, for future I'm talking for only 20 years. Based on 9% GDP growth rate, we'll need to have a generation capacity of somewhere in the vicinity of 9 lakh megawatts compared to what we have today, 1,64,000, and may end the current plan with 1,90,000. So mode of generation, and we have been predominantly a coal generation country. We are likely to continue, as Mr. Razdan has also said, for a couple of decades, predominantly based on coal. But international pressures on climate change and global warming on one hand, and then detrimental effect on the population in any case will force each one of us. Prime Minister said very aptly in the last Indian Science Congress that these pressures will force us to look for simpler and cleaner green energies. But what are those green energies? We have a hydel potential of 1,49,000 megawatt, whole of which may not be harnessed. Wind, we have at present the assessment is about 60,000 megawatt, and there the plant load factor is very low because wind is not available all the time. Gas, which is not totally green but still much better than coal, will contribute something, but I personally don't see a very large portion in terms of percentages. When I say 9 lakh megawatts, I don't expect a gas-based generation of 1 lakh megawatt or even 50,000 megawatt. Of whatever resources we are likely to get and the speed at which they are likely to be harnessed. And more than that is that they are more competitive customers of gas in India, which can replace liquid hydrocarbons like diesel, etc. So something will happen, but that again, solar, yes, it is there. Today, the cost of generation is somewhere in the range of 15-16 rupees per kilowatt hour. Best in the world, maybe little less, slightly less, maybe 14, who have spent billions of dollars in research, both in Japan and US, and still pumping more money, a type of money which we don't have, but they haven't been able to. It's an area where the cost of generation has been coming down definitely during last 30 years, but still not viable, competitive. But all the same, since it helps in elimination of CO2, today, at present, today's figures, the present capacity, coal-based capacity is creating as much as 600 million tons of CO2 only from India. That is the contribution of coal-based power generation. So it has to be replaced. There is no two opinions, but we can't afford to replace at a very quick pace also. Another problem hindrance which will come in the way of solar will be because very large areas, land areas are required. And cheap land, almost free of cost. That is the type of land which, say, 10,000 rupees an acre, which is only in desert. So deserts are not available all over the country and not adequate. So it will make contribution, but again will not. I feel a much larger contribution will have to be made by nuclear power. And thanks to the vision of our Prime Minister, really that something has happened. But what happened 2 months ago has certainly again frightened me. The only person during last 1 month of Commonwealth debate I heard who talked of project management was Narayan Swamy. Nobody has still talked. So it is the development of the culture which makes me worry, and not only the power sector or this sector or that sector. I don't know whether I have been able to do the justice to the task given to me in painting a canvas on 20 minutes. Maybe in some of the areas I have been critical. I do feel strongly about those. And I feel strongly because at the same time I feel that they are controllable factors. And country needs to do something on those. I have mentioned about creditable areas of power sector. We have done it. We can do still better. With these few words, may I once again thank ENERTIA Awards and the sponsors for giving me this opportunity to say a few words. Thank you very much.
It was really encouraging, and I tell you that the gist of the whole thing is that we don't execute, manage, and it starts, because when I was meeting Dr. Kapoor, he said it all starts with planning itself, So the whole thing is, everything has gone awry at each stage, probably. And so we need to wake up and we need to do things in a much, much superior and better way, and we are capable. I want to hear our very good friend, Mr. Vittal Kamath, before we get Nimish Patel sir, because Nimish has actually made this happen, as far as I am concerned. He has backed us. May I get Vittal Kamath sir to say a few words on this today's function.
Honorable Dr. D.V. Kapoor, Mr. V.P. Raja, Mr. Nimish Patel, and Professor Iyer. Let me first congratulate Professor Iyer for this award, but at the same time, I would like to congratulate all the winners, because 16 years ago, when we decided to open Asia's first environmental sensitive hotel, the whole world said, "Ye hone wala nahi hai." And my mother said, whenever people say it can't be done, that means it can be done. I approached the bank. That time, I was wearing a single hat, managing the largest chain of vegetarian restaurant called Kamath's. And being a idli vada dosa man, the banker said, "We can't give you any loan. You are making a economic hotel, not eco-friendly." I had to explain them what is eco-friendly hotel, but still, those days, Prabhu Sahab, the bankers used to lend you umbrella when there was a sunshine, and they used to take it back as soon as it starts raining. And it was very difficult for us. And we also announced it's going to be the first zero garbage hotel of the world. The principle was very simple. The Mother Earth is loaned to us, and it is our duty to hand it over in a better condition to the future generation. The formula number 2 was reduce, reuse, and recycle. Friends, Today, we are the environmental champions, winning more than 182 awards in the world. But the best part is, the biggest award for me today to sit on this dais with such celebrities, sir. My father taught me another formula, which I just now got it from Dr. Kapoor. He said, Vittal, prior planning prevents problem. And that, the formula has worked for this hotel. This is a 250-room hotel. Being a small restaurant, we started with 21 rooms here. And we convinced the bankers that we can do it. Otherwise, I was taken an ordinary Maharashtrian boy. He said, Maharashtrian people cannot run a 5-star hotel. The same thing may be happening to the winners, or must have happened to the winners. When they first started, everybody must have ridiculed you, said it is not going to happen. My friends, when there is a willpower, when there is a planning, the result is you are ultimate winner. I once again would like to congratulate all the winners, but at the same time will be happy to hand over a book, Italy, Orchid and Willpower, to each one of you. I can just tell the winner, जिंदगी की असली उड़ान अभी बाकी है, जिंदगी के कई इम्तिहान अभी बाकी है, अभी तो कर ली है बस मुट्ठी भर जमीन, सारा आसमान अभी बाकी है. Thank you. I wish you all the best.
So that was lovely from Kamath Sahib, great motivation, and we are very happy to be in your property today doing this function. May I now call over Mr. Nimish Patel, Director Patel Engineering Limited, and we must give him a big hand again, and especially today. Mr. Patel, please.
Good evening, distinguished members on the dais, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Professor Iyer for the fantastic work he's been doing with this award. It's the 4th year, but every year it gets better in its catchment of applicants and in the quality of its jury. So a big hand to you. There's a lot of talk these days about megawatts being added to the grid, and in